The most aesthetically pleasing submissions are often the most difficult to pull off. Low percentage finishes typically only get executed by top-tier submission artists, fighters who've already nailed the techniques ad nauseum during training. Submission virtuosos like Shinya Aoki, Nick Diaz, and Frank Mir, just to name a few, have developed the proper muscle memory to nail some of the world's most trying submissions. Here are the top 10 crazy flying submissions in the MMA. So before we get started, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for our future updates. Number 10. Fedor Emelianenko vs. Kevin Randleman, Pride Countdown. It's weird how people actually remember this fight for one of the most brutal suplex slams in the history of MMA. People still can't figure out how Fedor managed to survive such a ride. I mean, jacked Randleman slammed him right on his neck, and we all thought Fedor would end up in the wheelchair for the rest of his life. Instead, Fedor managed to deal with all the troubles and come back. He pulled one of the greatest comebacks by taking the top position and placing a nasty kimura. This was Fedor's favorite submission, and Randleman didn't have any chance to escape. Number 9. Nick Diaz vs. Takanori Gomi, Pride 33. At Pride 33, the rising star Nick Diaz faced one of the biggest Japanese MMA stars in Takanori Gomi. At the time, both fighters were great strikers, and the entire world expected a wild KO finish. This nearly happened early in the fight as Gomi managed to hurt Diaz after the exchange. But shortly after, Diaz found Gomi's number on the feet and started putting his boxing skills to work. After a couple of minutes, Gomi was already tired. He desperately tried to take Diaz down, but the American caught him in the nasty gogoplata submission. The Japanese crowd was in shock as Gomi tapped out to submission. But shortly after, Diaz tested positive for high concentrations of THC in his blood, and the fight ended up being no contest. In other words, Nick Diaz was high as hell while fighting one of the most dangerous MMA fighters of the time. I mean, you have to love the Diaz brothers. Number 8. Jon Jones vs. Lyoto Machida, UFC 140. Coming into his second title defense, many fans thought the unique style of Machida would give young Jones all kind of trouble. And it did. Machida came out guns blazing and controlling the fight on the feet. Jones even looked lost at times. But as all great champions do, Jones made the necessary adjustments between the rounds, and he began catching Machida with nice shots. At the last minute, the hard left hand sent Machida to the ground. While he was coming up, Jones caught him in a standing guillotine choke submission. The Brazilian refused to tap, and he quickly went sleep. The most badass MMA moment was seeing Jones letting go of the choke and unconscious Machida crashing to the canvas. Number 7. Leonard Garcia vs. Chong Sung Jongtoo, UFC Fight Night 24. Just a year after their epic brawl in 2010, the two fighters were set for a rematch at UFC Fight Night 24. Jung was very motivated to bring this one back, and he prepared something special for all the BJJ fans out there. In the second round, he managed to hurt Garcia with the right hand and knock him down with a flying knee. With only 30s remaining in the round, Jung took the back and began working on a submission. In a split of second, he placed a twister choke, and the crowd went mad. Garcia was forced to tap out with just a few seconds left on the clock. Number 6. Kazushi Sakuraba vs. Renzo Gracie, Pride 10. Sakuraba is one of the true legends of MMA and one of the greatest BJJ fighters ever. Most people know him by the nickname the Gracie Killer. As it suggests, Sakuraba was able to defeat 4 members of the Gracie family, something that people considered impossible at the time. After Sakuraba had beaten Royler and Royce, Renzo was on a mission to save the family's pride. This matchup was perhaps the most anticipated in Pride's history, and to be honest, nobody thought Sakuraba could win this fight. Renzo was much stronger and had superior BJJ skills on paper. Yet, the Japanese fighter caught Renzo in the nasty kimura in the second round. Renzo tried to escape the submission, and as a proud BJJ black belt, he refused to tap. As a result, Sakuraba broke his elbow, and the fight was over shortly after. Number 5. Anderson Silva vs. Sonnen, UFC 148. What happened that night in Vegas will go down in history as maybe the greatest MMA comeback story ever. The trash talk and the entire buildup leading up to the fight were insane. I mean, we are speaking about primetime Chael Sonnen holding the mic. Chael was looking amazing the entire fight, and he dominated Silva for 4 rounds. His wrestling was on point that night, and we all thought we were about to see a new middleweight champ. But with just half a minute left, Silva managed to wrap the triangle choke, and Sonnen was in all kinds of trouble. People couldn't believe Silva was about to win with a Hail Mary submission. Sonnen did try to escape, but the Brazilian was squeezing the choke like a madman. In the end, Sonnen tapped out with maybe 20s left on the clock. Number 4. Frank Mir vs. Antonio Nogueira 2. UFC 140. People tend to forget how good Mir was on the ground, and his victory over Nogueira at UFC 140 is a perfect reminder. Mir shocked the world by knocking out Nog 3 years earlier. So the two met each other once again at UFC 140 in a highly awaited rematch. Straight away, the two went to the ground, and many expected Nog to win, since he was the best BJJ fighter at the time. But Mir shocked everyone by setting up a nasty kimura. Nogueira refused to tap, and Mir went on to break his arm in front of the millions of people watching at home. Number 3. Fedor Emelianenko vs. Fabricio Werdum, Strikeforce. This fight is not just about great submission victory, it's about the importance and magnitude of the moment. The shock and disbelief as the entire world was watching Fedor losing for the first time. After ruling the Pride competition for almost a decade, Fedor came to the US with the goal to achieve the same result. But standing in his way was the upcoming BJJ fighter, Fabricio Werdum. To be honest, we all thought Fedor would walk right through the Brazilian. Fedor began looking for an early finish from the first second. He caught Werdum with the right hand and sent him to the floor. But he made a decision to rush in and finish the job with the ground and pound. Werdum stayed calm in the heat of the moment and was able to get hold of a deep triangle armbar. Werdum was squeezing the choke as if his life depends on it, and he forced Fedor to tap out for the first time in his career. Number 2. Demetrius Johnson vs. Borg, UFC 216. Hands down, Mighty Mouse is the most accomplished MMA fighter of all time, and his win over Borg is his best performance. We dare to go even further and say it is a piece of art. The two met each other at UFC 216, and we don't have to say Johnson was a massive favorite. As expected, he dominated Borg for 4 rounds before executing one of the hardest BJJ moves ever in the 5th. He took Borg's back in the clinch against the cage and lifted him up. But instead of scoring a powerful takedown, Johnson shifted to an armbar midair. As they both hit the ground, Borg literally landed into the armbar and was forced to tap. It was truly once-in-a-lifetime moment. Number 1. Toby Imada vs. George Masvidal, the later 5. Some of you may be surprised to see this submission ranking so high on our list. But stay with us on this one. Above all, it was the ultimate head-scratching moment. At Bellator 5, Imada was in for a serious beating. Masvidal was destroying him on the feet with vicious Muay Thai combos for 2 full rounds. That brings us to the end of this video. If you love similar content like this, take a look at my other videos. And if you like it, please smash the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. See you in the next video.